Welcome to Weekends with IIITH, a series in which we have been discussing aspects of life at IIITH. The International Institute of Information Technology was founded in 1998 as a not-for-profit public-private partnership. We have a dynamic and innovative profile in interdisciplinary academics and research and have internationally reputed centers of excellence. I'm proud to say that our graduates have gone on to build successful careers in industry, academics, and the civil services. Through Weekends with IIITH, we are conducting many live sessions and recorded broadcasts about academics, research, and life on IIITH campus. These are being recorded and made available online on our YouTube channel. Do check our social media handles on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn about future sessions. The theme of today's special recorded broadcast is IIITH Women in Engineering. One of the major goals of our undergraduate admissions in 2020 is to secure an intake of at least 25% women students through the JEE mode. To this end, we have a diversity pool with special incentives for women students applying through JEE. If you would like more information on the JEE diversity pool, please keep an eye on our website, iiit.ac.in, or email me at admissions.diversity@iiit.ac.in. Now, since we are focusing on gender diversity this year, we thought it would be a good idea to have a broadcast exploring what IIITH is like for the women who work here in different capacities as faculty or as staff, and also providing information and inspiration for female students who are considering IIITH for their education. So without further ado, let me introduce our panelists. We have with us today Professor Radhika Krishnan, whose areas of interest include the domains of technology studies, ecology, development, and labor. Professor Vinoo Alluri, who works in the domains of cognitive science, neuroimaging, music information retrieval, and music cognition. And Ms. Sriranjani K, who is the head of the IT Services Office at IIITH and steers the development of the Institute Management System, or IMS, as well as digital initiatives such as virtual classrooms and a Wi-Fi enabled campus. And my name is Nazia Akhtar. I handle diversity admissions at IIITH. I will now request the panelists to say a little bit about themselves. Perhaps we can start with Radhika.
I was born in Tamil Nadu, but I spent my entire childhood in this small steel township called Bhilai in Chhattisgarh, what is now Chhattisgarh. It was Madhya Pradesh in those days. After my schooling, I went to the National Institute of Technology in Kerala, Calicut, to do BTech in Electrical and Electronics Engineering. I joined the IT sector after my BTech degree, but I soon realized that my primary interests were in the environmental domain. So I left my IT job and did a master's and MTech in renewable energy systems and solar energy, to be more precise. After which I came to Delhi and worked for a fair amount of time, some 7 to 8 years, in the New Delhi-based Center for Science and Environment, which is a research and advocacy group working on the environmental question. After my longish stint in DC, I decided to shift to academia full-time, and I went to the Jawaharlal Nehru University in New Delhi to do an MPhil, and after that a PhD. My MPhil was basically an attempt to look at the mining debates in India, the way mining policy has shifted over time, and the various voices responding to mineral extraction policies in India. That sort of seamlessly led to my PhD, which was an exploration of this small trade union in Chhattisgarh, the Chhattisgarh Mukti Morcha. Now, look through the sort of lens and experiences of the Chhattisgarh Mukti Morcha and its founding secretary, I was basically trying to figure out how the environmental question and the technological question can enter trade union discourses. So essentially, I was figuring out what happens when workers enter the environmental debate and what happens to labor and what happens to trade union debates when the environmental question enters into it. So after I did my PhD, I went abroad to do a postdoc in Sweden, in South Sweden, after which I came back to India. I was a fellow at the Indian Institute of Advanced Studies in Shimla. And after Shimla, I came to Hyderabad to IIIT, and I'm an assistant professor here in the Human Sciences Research Group.
So I'm from Hyderabad, and I'm from a very early age of 7 years that I had started playing the violin and the piano. I started receiving training in that, and and since then I think music has had an immense, profound effect on me, and I always consider it to be magical. And I did my electronics and communications engineering, my undergraduation in that from Vasvi College of Engineering here in Hyderabad. After which I moved on to do my music engineering technology in Miami. But between my master's and undergraduation, I had a gap year where I was lucky enough to teach at Rishi Valley School. I taught math and music from 6th to 8th class, 6th to 8th graders. I taught mathematics and music. And I just wanted to always have music in my life. So I went ahead, did my master's. And it was still very technical to my taste, and I wanted to understand the human element, because there's also one very important incident that my cousin, who suffered from cerebral atrophy, she would not recognize her own mother or any of us, but she would have very interesting and profound reactions to music. And I thought, okay, this is something very interesting and fascinating, and I wanted to pursue that more. So I, again, after my master's, I wanted to understand more about how music affects the mind and the brain. And I had, again, a small gap where I ended up just playing video games and trying to figure out how I can do this. And finally, it happened that there was a PhD position open at the University of Jyväskylä in Finland. And it was in this very interesting interdisciplinary field of music research. So I went there and I got my PhD from there in musicology. And musicology is a combination of computer science, neuroscience, experimental psychology, computational modeling, so all of that. And after that, I did a couple of postdoctoral stints, one in Finland and the other one in Geneva, Switzerland. After that, I returned to India, and I've been in IIIT since 2017, and I am at the moment part of the cognitive science lab as an assistant professor there.
Thank you, Vinoo.
I'm from a small town called Karaikudi in Tamil Nadu. I graduated in electronics and communication engineering from Madurai Kamaraj University. I have more than 20 years of industry experience, both in India and in the US, delivering large-scale system integration projects involving intelligent transport systems, network security, product development, ports and mining, and banking solutions. I've been the head at IIIT for 3 years now, and it's been very interesting and innovative journey so far.
Thank you so much for that. Now, I know that you have gone into some detail about this already, but could you all expand further on what your roles at IIITH entail? I will use the same order. So Radhika, would you please tell us more about your work at IIITH?
I'm in the Human Sciences Research Group here at IIIT, as I mentioned a while back. We are right now running a very interesting and innovative dual degree program. It's a dual degree program that is attempting a confluence between the computer sciences on the one hand and the social sciences and humanities on the other. It's a very innovative idea in India, at least, and as far as I know, there are very few institutions who are attempting to do this confluence. So me and my colleagues have been involved in the last 2-3 years in building the curriculum for this. This dual degree program began last year. Our first batch has just completed its first year, and we are very happy with the way it's shaping up. Basically, what are we doing in confluence? So we're approaching this question of confluence from two sides. One, we are trying to use cutting-edge computer science tools to answer questions that social scientists have been asking over the years. So the questions are from the social sciences and the solutions are guided from tools that the computer sciences provide. The other approach is to actually look at the changing world that computers and technology are presenting to us, and using theories and systems from the social sciences to understand this change. So we're asking what is happening to governance with high technology, what is happening to delivery system, what is happening to the sense of self, and so on and so forth. So this confluence is what I am really involved with right now. I'm also offering some electives, humanities electives for all students in IIIT. So I offer a couple of electives in environment and politics, a couple of electives which are exploring some aspects of the science technology society interface.
Thanks, Radhika.
So as I was saying that I'm part of the Cognitive Science Lab at IIIT, I primarily teach, I offer elective courses to third year and above, and they're predominantly Cog-Sci oriented, and I specifically teach my own course, which is Music, Mind and Technology. And this is my main area of research, and like I had mentioned before, that it is a very interdisciplinary field of research, and that entails a combination of several aspects of music listening, music cognition. Because if you think about music as a mirror of the self, the kinds of music you listen to might say something about, one's own tendencies, traits, mood, and other preferences that one might have. So I think it's very fascinating to look at music from that angle, because my research also goes into that field. So what can we know about a person from their musical engagement? And currently a few of my projects are dealing with mental well-being and music, and also some neuroscience oriented work. So I hope to build upon this a bit more in the near future at IIIT.
Thanks, Vinoo.
As the person responsible for delivering technology implementations, both from the system and the software side, I have a unique role to play. From the system perspective, I am responsible for the IT infrastructure, ensuring business continuity and IT operations and enhancements. As IIITH is a research institute, we have a great diversity of researchers, and hence there is a need of equally diverse IT infrastructure. So I also take care of the development and implementation of the institute management system, which is IMS. This is a unique product, which is an ERP solution indigenously designed for the education institutions that integrates the workflow of different offices for the administrations like admissions, academics, projects, placements, finance, procurement, recruitments, and so on. So
from your introductions and your descriptions of your work, there is one running theme that I want to highlight right at the offset. All three of you are trained in ECE, Electronics and Communications Engineering, and all three of you are doing such diverse things, intersecting in such robust and rich ways with computer science engineering, as well as, of course, the humanities and the social sciences. Now, I want to underline this because this is a distinguishing feature of our engineering programs at IIITH as well, which are remarkably interdisciplinary, so that an ECE student can take CS courses and picks up CS skills in addition to their core foundation in EC. Similarly, a CSE student also has the opportunity to take ECE courses and work on ECE projects. And I think the work that the three of you do goes to show the variety of careers that is possible with engineering degrees today. And indeed how inextricably enmeshed these domains have become. I don't think people always appreciate that. So it's a good thing that that aspect has been highlighted in what you've said. Now, my next question for all three of you is, why did you choose to work at IIITH? What were your expectations when you joined IIITH, and has the experience corresponded to that? Radhika?
Ever since I was a young engineering student in Calicut, I have wanted to go back to an engineering college to teach, and more specifically to teach the humanities. Now, at that point of time, of course, I had no training in the social sciences and the humanities, but I knew this much, that I wanted to play a small role in introducing young engineers to the complexity of technology in society. My understanding then and my understanding today is this, that engineering curriculums tend not to train you to understand what technology is doing outside of the laboratory or outside of the shop floor. In other words, the social world of technology is not introduced to you at all. And I wanted to go back to engineering college to do exactly this. So that's one of the basic reasons I came to IIIT to teach. More than that, as I mentioned a while ago, I wanted to explore confluence of various sorts. I wanted to figure out if disciplines could talk to each other, because I find this lack of conversation between disciplines to be a little sad, and I wanted to sort of be part of this process to get these disciplines to sit together and chat with each other, if you may. And that's why I came to IIIT, and it has been a remarkably rewarding experience, I have to say, because IIIT did give me that space, that flexibility to explore confluence. I had the space to do that, and I have been making some use of the freedom that I've got to do that. So I'm very happy to be here.
Thank you, Radhika. I will go now to Vinoo.
So I moved back to Hyderabad for familial reasons. So, and I was quite happy, I would say surprised initially to find out that there was this cognitive science lab at IIIT, which would also allow me to get my interdisciplinary area of expertise to it and actually contribute. So that was the main reason I applied at IIIT. And I would say that initially it was a bit challenging because, again, I have to address a totally different audience here. So being from this interdisciplinary field, it always happens that the audience keeps changing, and that's the same initial challenge. But I must say that it's been a fantastic experience, and here, I think, I always used to think that engineering students will contribute a lot to music research, and research can go at a very fast pace with them. But it's just that we are not as aware of that in India, at least music-related research. So I think it's been fantastic, and IIIT gives you this space to explore as many interesting, creative ideas as possible. So it's been great so far. Yeah.
Sriranjani?
The title of IT head in a prestigious institute like IIIT Hyderabad was something that I didn't want to let go of. Having known that IIIT Hyderabad has produced outstanding engineers and alumni who are entrepreneurs running businesses successfully, working here is a privilege. Also, since I always wanted to pursue my doctorate, I shifted from industry to academics and joined IIIT Hyderabad.
Thank you, Sriranjani. Now, to all of you, who are your inspirations and mentors? Radhika, would you like to go first?
That's a bit of a tough question, Nazia, honestly. I think all of us learn from several people. I have one from several people I've had the privilege to work with and to be with. My aunt Jyoti, for one, she was a PhD in sociology. She taught at the St. Xavier's College in Bombay and later on in IIT Delhi. I learned from her essentially two things. One, that it was perfectly okay for a woman to want to have a job, to be independent, to want to, be your own person. But more importantly, I learned from her something, and that message has constantly sort of run around my mind over the years. She said, listen, it's good to be the nice person. It's good to be the sweet person who's always around in office to help others. But it's also equally important to know when to say no, to know when to hold back and say, this is not something that I should be doing, or I should not be doing this. I learned that from her. The other very important influence in my life has been my father. He was an engineer with the Bhilai Steel Plant. He was in the rolling mills, that is on the shop floor of a very large and excellent steel plant. So as you can imagine, it was a very tiring job. He found the time to teach me maths and physics. He found the time to teach me how to change tires of our scooter and our car and how to drill holes in walls. He found time to cook on a daily basis. And basically, I learned from him, and I also from my mother, what it is to be a parent who lets their children do exactly what they want to be unconventional youngsters in an atmosphere and in a town where it's not that easy to be unconventional. Again, I've learned from my brother-in-law, who is one of the most highly socially and politically committed persons I have come across. And yet, what I find unusual about him is his complete awareness of things around him at home, of his ability to know exactly what is required at home, what people around him are feeling and what they need, and the ability to constantly respond to those needs. So I've learned from many others, including these three that I have just talked about.
Thank you, Radhika. Vinoo?
When it comes to inspiration, I've always been surrounded by very strong, independent women, starting from my grandmother. So she was the headmistress of a school in those days, and it was not as common. And it was just amazing, the poise and the character she had, what she would exude. And same thing with my mother or my aunt. So I'm always surrounded by such ladies. So obviously, you just feel this is how one should be. Very independent and do what you have to, what you like, what you can, given the circumstances, of course, but at least you don't give up easily, right? But at the same time, when it comes to mentoring, I would say for sure that my father has had a great role to play in that, because it was he who introduced me to music, and he wanted me always to pursue whatever it is, just give your best, and he does his best. So I always think that that's what one should do. And as a result, I would say that we would always aim for the best. He was the one who helped me find music engineering technology as a course then. It was not even existent. I didn't know about it. And second page of Google, he's like, no, just go and try. You might find something. So he always supported me greatly. And I think that's crucial. He was the one who took me to music classes. So I would say that he's guided me in many ways as a mentor. And I think one very important person that I should say has had a large influence is my PhD supervisor, Professor Petri Tovianen from University of Jyväskylä, Finland. So my entire research journey has been so much fun, and I never knew research could be so much fun and exciting, and that's because of him. So he taught me how to balance work and other things in life. You would also say this is just work. So life is life, work is work, enjoy both. So I think it has greatly influenced my way of teaching, my way of doing the research. So I would say that the women have been extremely inspirational, and the men have really done a great job by being mentors for me. So that's how it has been.
Thanks, Vinoo.
I would like to attribute my success to my mother. She was working in the income tax office, but had to quit her job to take care of us. So she had imbibed in me the desire to excel and to be independent. But for her, I would not be here. My husband has also been a pillar of support for me. My job being what it is, takes away a lot of my time, be it working over the weekends, late hours, or business trips. He ensured that he was always there to support. He also provides me with abstract guidance on the issues I face and help me refocus on the challenges at hand. As Radhika and Vinoo mentioned, see, we find inspiration in many places in our lives. By reading or talking to others or crossing paths with people who have changed our lives in ways we have never expected.
Thank you, Sriranjani. So I have a couple of observations. all of you attribute a large part of your success to the women who have come before you, because of whose experiences, sacrifices, and strengths you have not had to struggle in those exact same ways. I would like to underscore that point because who we are is often partly based on a foundation that other women have laid for us. Another point that I would like to highlight here is that all three of you attribute your understanding of work-life balance, which is usually almost exclusively associated with women, to the men in your lives. This is important because we still live in a world where domestic work and social relationships are largely perceived as a woman's responsibility. And your fathers, husbands, and brothers-in-law depart conspicuously from that norm. So I just wanted to highlight that. Now, when did you know that you were going to go into science and technology? Radhika, would you like to start?
For me, it was an almost obvious choice. Of course, I was always fascinated by physics and I was fairly good at maths. But more than that, as I said, I grew up in the steel township of Bhilai, where technology was all around you. So my father used to take me to the plant occasionally, and all that I felt at seeing these massive blast furnaces and steel melting shops and sinter shops and coke ovens and rolling mills and so on. And I just knew that I wanted to be here. I just wanted to be part of the engineering discipline. That was fairly clear. I think it was a part and parcel of growing up in the steel township of Bhilai. But over the years, I have qualified my relationship with technology, so to say, and as my career trajectory has shown, but I'll maybe talk about that later.
Thanks, Radhika. Vinoo?
After my +2, I think there weren't too many choices that we knew of. So it was if you like to remember a lot of things and mug up things, then maybe biology is for you, and or you do engineering if you like math. So it was unfortunately just that, or fortunately. So I didn't think too much. I knew that I'm not a history person, I'm not a biology person, although now I'm a lot more interested in biology. But so I just decided to do my engineering, and at the same time I was doing music as well. So it wasn't. I thought I would just do some degree, and this was okay, and I joined. And it was a very simple choice that I made, nothing where I thought too much about it.
Thanks, Vinoo. Sriranjani?
Yes. From the beginning, my orientation was towards science, and hence moving into a career in engineering did not come as a significant change.
So I think it's fair to say that for all three of you, science and technology were natural choices in line with your interests and environment, and you seem to have gravitated towards that intuitively. Now, Sriranjani, what is it like working in areas that are still quite male dominated? How do you manage a leadership position in such a field as IT services, which is still, as I said, quite male dominated?
It's always been a male dominated team, be it a team I report to or the team that reports to me. So it takes resilience to stay. It is quite stressful and challenging because you tend to overwork, trying to prove your worth all the time. See, the expectations and beliefs about women's leadership have not changed so much over years. Men are still perceived to have the time commitment, the rapport, the aggressiveness, and the connections which are required, considered necessary for this role. So I have grown accustomed to being one of few, if not the only woman in a meeting. I remember early in my career working at a security startup in New Jersey. Among the many people from the research, product, and business, I was the only woman. So I learned not to succumb to stereotype-driven expectations. I include mentorship and also adopt participative leadership. I care and I'm fair And I encourage and work with each and every team member to deliver based on their skills. So I do a lot of journaling. This helps me in organizing my work and prioritize as well. So I reflect on my work, and this helps me figure out how do I do better. In my view, I found that while working in both the industry and academics, people value your skill. As long as you deliver and work with passion, gender really doesn't matter.
Thank you for giving us such rich insights into your perspective, Sriranjani. That's a very thoughtful, reflective, and creative approach to leadership. Now, my next question, and perhaps we can start with Radhika because she mentioned what it was like growing up in a small town. What were some of the challenges that you have faced in your careers?
See, the initial challenge was, of course, to be accepted as an engineer. Now, this was a couple of decades back when it wasn't very common to see engineers, women engineers. So that was a challenge, of course, but over years we have sort of learned to deal with it. As I said, the first challenge, of course, for a young woman who wants to have a career in engineering is to be recognized as a competent engineer, and I think all of us here today have had to deal with it, and we have dealt with it fairly well. But for me, I have had to face challenges at multiple levels. To begin with, of course, the challenge was to as a young engineer in an engineering college, and then the challenge of confluence. That challenge, of course, begins in your mind when you try to figure out whether the idea of confluence has any value at all. You convince yourself that yes, this is something that needs to be done and you want to be the person doing it. And then, of course, convincing others that this is something that is important. That has been a remarkably challenging process for me. And this theme of confluence has been with me for now many, many years. And I have seen various iterations of it throughout my career, and at each point I have had to do that. So the other major challenge for me was to constantly re-skill myself, constantly acquire new skills. So my initial training was in electrical and electronics engineering, and I quickly really learn new skills. I needed to read a lot more. I needed to acquire more kinds of knowledge. And that's why I, especially if I wanted to do confluence. So I had to, for example, acquire basic knowledge of the tools and the concepts in the social sciences, concepts that are common to people who are trained in sociology and political science. So it's been a constant process of relearning, of learning new things. And it's been a very exciting process, tiring and frustrating at times, but it's been a very interesting process. And an underlying challenge, of course, has been growing up in a small town. Now, anybody who grows up in a small town, and I'm sure Sriranjani will agree with me here, your family is not just people who you live with, right? Your parents are, of course, there, your brother and sisters are there, and so on. But you have this large extended family consisting of neighbors and the neighborhood uncles and aunties and teachers and principals, all of whom play an inordinately high role in your life. They will come and advise your parents on what you should be doing, and more important, what you shouldn't be doing. So all of this as a young girl, I remember this one incident with great clarity. It's never actually left me. So I was in the 12th standard and I was planning to write all these engineering entrance exams. And our neighbor came to my mother and said, listen, I understand your daughter is hardworking and intelligent and all of that, but do you really want to send her outside Bhilai? Why would you want to do that? It's such a safe town. And my mother said, listen, I understand where you're coming from. I know you're concerned about my daughter, but the thing is, whether or not she likes it, I am going to make sure that she actually moves out of Bhilai. Why? Because I want her to be independent. I want her to have a mind of her own, and I want her to stand on her own feet. And for that to happen, I think she will have to live in a hostel. She will have to learn to take her own decisions and to just develop a personality of her own. So I think being coming from a small town has those challenges, but I'd like to add something here, that the small town is no longer what it used to be, in my opinion at least. The small town has changed fundamentally. Today, the small town in India is a hotspot of emerging aspirations. Whether it's women or whether it's whether it's young men, people in small towns now want to do several things and they feel confident enough to do those things that they might not have felt, say, 2 decades back. And more than that, institutes and institutions outside in cities and so on have also learned to address these concerns and aspirations of people coming from small towns. So you have formal and informal networks in institutions such as IIIT, specifically addressing these aspirations coming from people from small towns. So there are mechanisms to ease out this transformation for people who want to make this shift from the small town to a large and famous institution in a city.
Thank you for pointing that out, Radhika. That's an important point. Yes, we do have such mechanisms at IIITH, such as the Apex Committee, right, where student mentors look after and help new students adjust to their schedules and lives at the institute. So thank you so much for pointing that out. Vinoo, I think your experience of your challenges would be quite different in many ways since you grew up in Hyderabad. Would you like to go into some of those?
So you're right, Nazia, that I don't have the same experience with these challenges that one might have faced coming from a small town. However, I think there's, of course, it's not whether it's a small town or a city. I still think certain challenges would always exist, even in the cities. But luckily, because of my parents being so supportive, that I never found that I never faced any of these sorts of hindrances, let's say, or something that would maybe make you more determined to prove yourself. So I didn't have that. But having said that, I know that the first, it was sort of interesting. Well, it was amusing to me that when I was doing my PhD and I said, yes, it's in musicology, and somebody actually said, what, you get paid for this? I said, yes, I get paid to do research in music. So it's always a bit of a challenge to make people understand what it means to do research in arts, music. Why is that even important to humanity, right? So that is one challenge, which it's not that it is a problem, but I know that what I do, it's absolutely what I love, and I think it's going to be helpful. So in that sense, you just have to. It's a fight with yourself, not with anybody outside, I feel, at least from what I have faced. So that way, I think that's one amusing incident. Even now, I think people don't understand what it means to do music research. So, and if they're open, then I can throw all sorts of creative ideas at them. And so in that sense, I think that still exists. And even students, sometimes it's a bit difficult for them to join all these dots in a creative way, right? Engineering and music. But it can most certainly be done, and I know that from the students that I've been working with, and they enjoy the process as well. And another challenging aspect, I would say, is that because of the confluence of disciplines that my research entails, that it's a bit challenging to stay abreast of all the things that are happening in those disciplines, right? To stay up to date. So that is the most challenging thing. Yet it's the most interesting and fun thing about doing research in such an interdisciplinary field. So there's always challenges, but as long as you try your best and you enjoy that, it's not a challenge anymore, I would say.
I agree with all the points that Radhika mentioned. See, your family include your neighbors also, and they play a major role in influencing the decisions. So when I remember when one of my neighbors advised my parents not to take up engineering, they stood by me and encouraged me to take up whatever I wanted to do. So the parents' outlook today this may not be true today, since the small towns have all evolved, and the parents' outlook have also definitely changed, and the students are willing to look at different options. So that is definitely a big change as we see today in many of the small towns.
Thank you, Sriranjani. Now, I want you all to cast your minds back and tell us what advice, in retrospect, you have for your 18-year-old self.
I'm not sure what I would tell myself specifically, except that, well, trust yourself as you always do. Make your mistakes, learn from them, try not to make them again, and it's all good in the end. And breathe deeply, and things will pass. So I think this is all I would say, because if I were to change anything then I wouldn't be where I am now, and I'm pretty happy where I am. So yeah, that's all I would tell myself.
Thank you so much, Vinoo. Radhika?
I tell my 18-year-old self, listen to others, because yes, they come with a lot of experience and so on, but more important, learn to have confidence in your own self. Learn to trust your inner feelings and learn to not hide what you really want to do. Don't let others make those decisions for you, decisions about career, decisions about your personal life, decisions about how you should live your personal life and how you should live your professional life. Just learn to trust your gut instinct and work on it. There will be difficulties. You may or may not succeed in what you want to do, but that doesn't matter. It's more important to just learn from your mistakes, as Vinoo very nicely put it. And it's very nice to learn to work on your own interests. So that's the advice I would give my 18-year-old self.
Thank you so much, Radhika. Sriranjani?
I would tell my 18-year-old to listen, learn, validate. Work through your career options or the thought process with your parents. Do not lose any genuine career options or educational options available to you. See, to be open to them and discuss with them. That will bring a lot of change in your career-related decisions. That is what I would want to tell my 18-year-old.
Now, what do you think, or what do you say when you hear people say that girls aren't good at engineering, or that it is not a good choice for women? I will start with Radhika.
I would just say, please look around you. Women are successfully doing their jobs as engineers all over the world today. Take IIIT, for instance. Our current Dean of Academics is Professor Jayanti Sivaswamy, who has had an incredibly successful career as an engineer. She has not, now of course she's the Dean of Academics, but she's held all sorts of posts in IIIT with great distinction. And it's not just Professor Sivaswamy, there are so many women I can talk about. The current president of INSA, the Indian National Science Academy, is a woman. The last Indian to be nominated to the Royal Society is a woman. We have women in IIIT and elsewhere who are successfully running projects, who are heading centers, who are supervising great research, who are doing great research themselves. So there is really no reason for women to feel underconfident about their ability to be good engineers. But now that I have some social science training, I now know the importance of socialization, the role that socialization plays in any of these ideas we have about ourselves and about people around us. We are deeply socialized to think that there are certain careers that are not nice for women, and there are certain careers that men are naturally sort of acclimatized into. And we know that that socialization can and does change. It is not necessarily rooted in fact. So given all that, I can say with some amount of confidence that there is very little empirical evidence to prove that women will always make bad engineers or anything of that sort. So if you have an interest in engineering and if you want to do, there is literally nothing that can and should stop you. But there's something else that I have to say. It's not as if being a woman engineer does not come in with its, challenges. You will have to face some garden variety sexism. You will have to probably, as Sriranjani pointed out a while back, you will have to probably work a little harder than your male colleagues to make your voice heard, to explain to people that you are very good at your job and all of that. All of us have done that, but that hasn't deterred an entire generation of engineers from doing what they wanted to do. And I'm sure it's not going to deter young women who want to be engineers today.
Thank you so much, Radhika, for that very encouraging response. Sriranjani, I will go to you next.
I think people who tend to think that engineering is a challenging work environment for women because men tend to outnumber the amount of women in these professions. I think there are tough environments in any job or any field that you go into, be it medicine, engineering, banking, nursing, or even movie direction. So these are tough. There are tough environments wherever you go. So the key is that you should have the passion to do what you're doing and your drive to do what you're doing to get you through those tough times. So that's what makes that difference. And saying that engineering is not fit for women is something I disagree strongly.
Thank you, Sriranjani. Vinoo, would you like to add something to that?
Radhika and Sriranjani have covered a lot, so there's not too much that I can add. But yes, if a child, or this is from early childhood, it's not that you might even see certain tendencies that they like to play with tools, they like to do all of those things which probably they just imitate people around. So girls can do that too. So it's just very. I would first like to ask them where they got this idea that women would not do as well, right? Why? What makes you say that? You give the same tools to a boy and a girl, they would do the same. I mean, they just play around with it. So there's no reason to think that they would fare as bad engineers, especially when they're really interested in that, right? So there's all you can do is encourage them to pursue that, and they try their best, and that's all we all can do. We try our best, and we do what we like. Or we like what we do, or both. So yeah, I think there's no reason to believe that they would not be good engineers. That's my 2 cents.
Thanks, Vinoo. I will ask Vinoo to start the response to our next question as well. Now, IIITH has a famously flexible work culture and environment. How does this shape the way you live and work?
So when I first joined IIIT, I must say I was pleasantly surprised with the flexibility that exists there, right? When it comes to work culture. There are many times that I work from home. I have children, young children, so it's not always feasible for me to set certain times. Of course, when we have to teach, we teach. We come to class, we teach. But I'm quite thankful that I have this sense of freedom that IIIT gives in working from home. It can be at any time of the day. Sometimes after the kids sleep, I can just log in, and then I get to work with my students. And it's just very efficient that way, because if you're pressurized to work from 9 to 4 or 9 to 5, especially when you have children, it's not always, that's in an ideal world. That doesn't, not even in an ideal world probably. So I think I'm very thankful that it works out very well. And especially there are times that if the student wants to, let's say that the student wants to go back home for a weekend or wants to stay on for a day or two during vacation time, and it all works, because it doesn't matter where they are. We can still work, we can do efficient work, and that's quite empowering, because this is how research works. Ideas can strike at any time of the day, and then you're able to do it and discuss, and that's okay. So I think in that sense, for both, not only for me, but for the students as well, it's a lovely tango that we can do. when you have this sense of freedom and the opportunity that IIIT offers.
Thank you for that, Vinoo. Sriranjani, would you like to go next?
IIIT gives me a lot of gives me ample freedom and fosters a sense of belongingness, so which allows me to deliver better and feel valued. And so this and I also feel that in order to deliver better, you need to have a good work-life balance. So the key is to stay connected with your family and your children especially, and be there for them when they need you. So this sort of the IIITH gives me that flexibility. To do this. And the role I have been given embraces my unique combination of skills and abilities. So this increases my satisfaction and lowers the stress that I might go through otherwise. So this balance between the technical expertise and the understanding of the domain puts me in a unique place in IT, and that makes me a happy woman in IIIT.
Thank you for that, Sriranjani. Radhika, do you want to add anything to that?
Now, I see this whole question of flexibility slightly differently. For me, the plus point that IIIT gives to me is academic flexibility, professional flexibility. I know of very few other places where I could use, or I could get my students to use NLP, natural language processing, to study political campaigns and changing political campaigns and so on. So it's not just that, it's the ability, the opportunity that IIIT gives you to collaborate across domains and so on. For me, that is the cornerstone of flexibility in IIIT. That's something that I have really appreciated.
Thanks, Radhika. My last question for all three of you is, do you have any advice or message for women students applying to IIITH? Radhika, would you like to start?
Now, this is not a very easy question, but let me try. Now, how does one go about this difficult job of evaluating an institution? If you ask me personally, after having seen many institutions, the way I go about it is this. I look at how proactive an institution is, how self-reflexive it is, how open it is to learning from its primary constituents, in this case, its students and its women students. I think IIIT does a good job of actually addressing concerns and aspirations that come from its constituents. So there are problems will happen. There is no perfect institution, but the ability to constantly evolve and grow. And what do I mean by evolving and growing? The ability to constantly come up with support structures, with policies, with initiatives to address concerns is something that I actually appreciate a lot about an institution, and I see that happening in IIIT. Now, IIIT is a safe and vibrant campus, and all of us as a community work very hard to make this happen. And the other thing I'd like to flag off here is something that I think all three of us here, Vinoo, Sriranjani and I have been talking about. It's this whole question of flexibility. The flexibility, the academic and professional flexibility that IIIT offers you. There are very few institutions where you will get to work on cutting edge research questions across domains. There is really no reason in IIIT to be stuck to one domain or the other. You can collaborate with, you can get advice from supervisors across domains, and this is something I find very special about IIIT.
So Radhika has put it eloquently, so I don't have too many things to add, but just to reiterate a couple of things that yes, IIIT is an institute that encourages you to find your own path. It provides a very, I would say, fertile, platform for cross-pollination of disciplines, and that's the fun part of it, I would say. And if you do have any crazy out of the box ideas and you want to get creative with research and work, well, this is the place to be. So if, in simply put, what would I tell them? Yeah, well, why wouldn't you come to IIIT, right? So that's how I would end my, well, that's what I would say.
Thanks, Vinoo. Sriranjani?
If you want to break stereotype and bring out the best in you, IIIT Hyderabad is the place to be. Environment in IIIT is so friendly and it allows you to break out of your shell and be your natural self. When you are at your natural self, you tend to be more creative. And it is a place which is safe and it has the nurturing environment that to stay and study. And getting into IIIT is one of a kind opportunity because you get to learn and be mentored by the faculties who are best in their fields. Okay. And IIIT is also unique in a way in that the IIIT students also get to play a major role in the IT services team. And they get an opportunity to learn and contribute as system administrators and as software developers. This prepares them for the industry and beyond. So, so if you want to be the best, please be at IIIT.
Thank you for that, Sriranjani. We have reached the end of this session, and I want to conclude on a philosophical note. Half of all humanity consists of women, but the journeys and perspectives of women engineers are frequently overlooked in the world in which we live. This session gives you an insight into the multidimensional personal and professional trajectories that women engineers at IIITH have charted for themselves. Their experiences show how engineering and information technology are not only extremely fluid and versatile, but also dynamically engage with the everyday world around us. Their views demonstrate how IIITH is a part of this meaningful engagement so that our students are not just exceptionally trained in core skills that they will need in their careers, but also equipped with rich perspective about the world around them. I hope that the achievements and successes of all the women engineers we have had on the panel today serve as an inspiration to young women to pursue engineering and technology. How innovatively these professionals have welded their qualifications, their experiences, and their ambition to reach their goals has been an important takeaway from this session. I thank the speakers for taking out the time to share their lives and experiences with us. I would also like to remind our viewers that we are targeting at least 25% intake of women students through JEE mode in 2020. So do keep an eye on our website for further details and feel free to write to me at admissions.diversity@iit.ac.in. For all other modes of admission, please write to our academic counselor at acad.council@iit.ac.in. Thank you for joining us.